Good morning, everybody. This is Stephen Pugh of the Home Bible College. I want to do a small lecture for the benefit of the fourth year students of the Home Bible College. This is lecture number 27, and it raises the interesting issue that the Christian pastor, and in fact the evangelist, but we'll talk about the evangelist another day, the Christian pastor may encounter opposition within the church to his ministry after a while. Now, this is not uncommon, and it may cause quite a shake-up in the church. And for a new pastor, it can be very disconcerting. Now, there's always opposers to the Christian pastor's ministry. That's something that's a given. There's always opposition. First of all, let's go through a list of some of the different ways in which the pastor's work can be opposed. First of all, there are those who think that the pastor's all wonderful. Oh, he's so wonderful, so handsome, so clever. And then after a while, people begin to discover who he really is and what he really does. Now, that's not because the pastor's changed. The thing that's changed is the understanding and the opinion of the people concerned. They've taken now a different perspective as to who he is. And at this particular point, a lot of people get so disillusioned that they decide to just leave. Oh, we're just going to go now. Well, why are you going to go? Oh, well, you didn't meet up to the expectations that we had. Well, you see, the expectations that they had were their own. They weren't necessarily realistic. They weren't necessarily what the pastor really was all about. The second type of opposers are those who have their favorite false idea, which they like to push upon people, and they like to push this issue to the front all the time. It's their favorite big issue. Okay? This is usually of a fairly important nature. So, for example, we come across people who want to push the Calvinistic idea all the time. We have people that want to push the idea, oh, we must use only the authorized version all the time. And then there's others who say, no, we need to be separate from everybody. We are the people of God, and everybody else hasn't got it right. And so therefore, we need to just keep ourselves separate from all Christians. We have others that come along saying, oh, well, we believe in tongues and we believe it's the most important thing. We believe it should be taught and it should be practiced and all the rest. And woe betide anybody that has a difference of opinion or a difference of operation in relation to the gift of tongues. Then we have people who come across and say, well, I believe in the Baptist church, or someone says, well, I'm a Methodist. Another one says, well, I'm a Presbyterian. You see? And this denominationalism becomes a big problem for many people. Now, these are fairly important issues. They're all issues to be talked about. They're all issues that can be discussed. However, this type of opposer have already made their mind up. They don't really want to discuss it. They just want to have somebody that will say, yes, I agree. Let's do what you think. Let's do what you say. But you see, the wise pastor, he's already understood these issues in his heart, and he has had great difficulty, generally speaking, in handling these issues. And so it'll take all of his skill and his diplomacy and his grace to enable him to handle people that have a favorite false idea. So we've got two cases so far. First of all, the people who have misunderstood who the pastor really is, and now they're disappointed and want to leave. The second people are people who want to stay. Oh no, we want to stay, but we just want you to agree with everything that we say. Now, the third type of opposers are those who like to talk about the trivialities. They really do like to talk about things that are very trivial. I'll give you some examples. We must have the communion cloth laid around in this particular way. Or they say, we must only allow the New English Bible to be read, or maybe it's the NIV to be read, or maybe it's the Authorized Version to be read. We only allow a particular translation, and that's what we're used to, and that's what we're going to allow. It's a very trivial matter. All the translations in the main are very good indeed. Another person may come along and say, no, we want the walls to be this color or this shade of color. You see, this is a triviality. Of course, it's something to be talked about. You know, it is something to be talked about, but it isn't really all that important. And in fact, whatever color went up on the wall, we'd still be able to worship the Lord just the same, just the same. And of course, other people will come along and say, oh no, biscuits. No, we can't have biscuits. They're full of sugar. We'll have cake instead. And other people will say, no, cake is even worse. Let's have no sugar biscuits, you see. And so there's an endless list, if I might say, of irrelevant issues. They're just irrelevant. Now, it isn't that there's nothing to say about them. It's just that they're not that important. Now, in Christ's day, the religious leaders loved to talk about irrelevant issues. They like to talk about when you put a little bit of herb onto your dinner. They like to tithe that little bit of herb, and that would be laid to one side, and that was going to be given as a gift to the Lord. You know, this is such triviality. It's ridiculous, really. Now let's look at the fourth. Oh, by the way, I'm not going to give any help to any of you pastors as to what to do about these issues. You've got God. You've got God to lead you and God to guide you, and you'll be fine. But it'll take all your patience and all your wisdom to handle people who oppose you like this. Number 4. These are the people, okay, who will not openly oppose the pastor, but they'll whisper behind his back. Okay, now they're afraid to confront the pastor personally, but they're not afraid to say things behind his back. And they're also not afraid to use their influence, and they are people of influence. They're not afraid to stir people up behind the pastor's back to make a fuss, generally, about something that's fairly irrelevant. Now, these people are very difficult to handle, and that is a great problem for a lot of pastors. Now, number 5, these are the people who've got used to things as they are, okay, and they're unwilling to accept any change of any kind. The famous story is given of a man who was the person in charge of a church, and person like the caretaker type of person. And somebody said to him, "Oh, we see that you've been in this church a long time." And he said, "Yes, I've been here a very long time, and I have resisted every change that's ever taken place." Now, you know, there's 2 sorts of change, maybe 3. There's the sort of change that makes no difference. There's the sort of change that's bad. And then there's the sort of change that's good. Okay? And we need to help our people in churches to understand that some change is inevitable. Sometimes we'll need to have a new settee at home. Sometimes we'll need to turn the chair around to face the other way. This is just moving the furniture. It doesn't really make any difference to the household. And it's the same in churches. Sometimes it's important to just change how something's done. Maybe it's important to change the hymn book to bring a different selection of hymns to be sung. Maybe it's important to change just the smallest matter in a church. However, it can take a great deal of patience to overcome difficulties of this nature, and it can take the patience of the pastor to enable people in the church to understand that change isn't always bad. There's always going to be change. We're all getting older. You know, the decoration is getting older, and it's beginning to peel. Every year it peels more and more than ever. We need to understand some changes are good. The question is this: are we able to take hold of change and able to use change that happens in our churches in a positive way? That's the secret, and that's the pastor's job, to help people to understand that. Now, number 6, you say, wow, there's a lot of problems, Stephen. Yeah, there's a lot of problems. Let's look at number 6. Now, these are people who are outside the church, but who wish to influence the church's policy and to insist that they've got a far better way of operating. Now, these might be relatives. These might be people who used to be members but don't come anymore. You'd be amazed how many people outside the church would like to change how we do things in the church. And they'll use all sorts of means, and they'll use all sorts of methods and persuasion. They might withdraw money, they might give money, they might use all the means available to try to change church policy. Now, we need to understand that these people are opposing the work of God in a church. It's not the duty of somebody outside the church to change the church, not at all. And then let's have a look at the last one. The last one, number 7, is open opposition and persecution. Now, this is quite a different matter altogether. This certainly is not trivial. It's something which often brings a great deal of spiritual devotion to Christ. People who are opposed for Christ publicly, people who are persecuted, and people who suffer for their faith, they don't give up. Christians almost invariably don't give up. They become stronger in their faith, more fervent in their devotion, and more bold in their witnessing. So very often persecution has completely the opposite effect in the lives of people in church fellowship. So there's a great long list of different ways in which a pastor in his ministry can be opposed in his work. Well, God bless you. We look forward to speaking to you again next week, and have a great day. Bye for now.